Hi, welcome to If I Did It, a show where we analyze and solve PR kerfuffles from the MMA world and beyond. I'm your host.
It sounds like a Goldfrapp record.
I'm your host, Lex Steele, and joining me as always is Kid Native Bloody Elbow and Eugene-S. Robinson, sound effects provider from Aussie.com, panelist and author of Fight Everything Everyone Know About Asking. We're afraid to get your ass kicked for asking.
Well, there you go, buddy. You got it.
That's right.
Feeling good. I got to start with the curveball. I got to jump the train before.
I'm sorry. What did you?
Oh!
What is this? It just jumped in my hand, baby. I'm being inspired. Inspired.
It's a great book. It's a great book. Page turner.
Yeah.
So glad you're reading it, Eugene. I got to throw a curveball though.
All right, go ahead.
You are a Bernie-type progressive liberal activist in Florida. You've been fighting the power all year by supporting Congressman Alan Grayson's underdog run for the Senate against both the usual neoliberal Democratic oligarchy and the crazy right-wing Republicans. Yesterday, Politico comes out with a career-killing bombshell, potentially, with serious allegations and heavy evidence that Congressman Alan Grayson, accused of domestic violence over a 20-year period with his ex-wife, Lolita. What do? Do you Bernie or bust it, or do you cut your losses?
You're asking me or you're asking Alexi?
I'm asking you first, and then Alexi can go.
You at this point now, you gotta DB Cooper it, man. You gotta pull that fucking ripcord and float off into the night, because given this current political environment, well, not even a current political environment, you're just not going to make it. You're just not going to. 20 years, I mean, you might be able to get away with, oh, it's a vengeful ex-wife. Nah, you're not. Nah, you're not. Not this time, not for 20 years. I don't know how you didn't see this coming. I mean, the thing is,
I'm asking you as a Democratic activist, not alleged wife beater. We don't care.
As Democratic activist, you gotta, that's one of those things where everybody around the table looks at it and go,
yep.
You know, like Abe Vigoda, can you cut me a break, Tom, for old time's sake? No, fucking.
It's like in Boogie Nights when I can't remember if he was the Duke or the Colonel or whatever.
Colonel.
Burt Reynolds' sidekick gets busted as a pedo bear, and he calls from jail. Please help me. And people are just like, click.
They're so little. They're so little.
Yeah.
I think for him, it's funny you bring this up, Nate, because there was an article that came out a couple of days ago, I think, on Deadspin about Jim Brown and like the Jim Brown legacy. Yeah. In wake of Jim Brown Jim Brown's support of Michael Jordan finally taking some kind of political stand with regard to the police and Black Lives Matter issue. And I was like, here's a reminder of Jim Brown, like how he beat women. It's like a chronology of like through the years, you know, girlfriend appears on the ground floor, like semi-conscious. You know, did she fall off the balcony? You know, women falling down the stairs. And the thing is that, you know, it was fascinating to see how Jim Brown spins it now, in the sense like, look, there's stuff I did in the past are horrible, violence against women, actions against women, just never acceptable. The thing, though, is there's distance between that and now, number one. And number two, I know much you guys, anytime I'm reading anything with someone who played professional football, I'm wondering about concussions and like what's really going on, you know, in addition to things. So for this guy, he doesn't have those excuses. It's new, and I don't know what kind of brain trauma he can utilize. So
yeah, it's all the trauma of being a millionaire lawyer and a member of Congress.
Well, and also, first of all, Jim Brown beat everybody. You know, this is not exculpatory in my mind, but it's like when if you're going to start prosecuting Jim Brown for that, where do you start? Where do you stop? If you're a golf partner who was winning, you got beaten. If you were an accountant who couldn't answer a question fast enough, you got beaten. I mean, if you go back into history, Jack Dempsey was a piece of shit. You know, so it happens if you're a tough guy that you know no boundaries against your behavior. Who's going to stop you? Or like Mike Tyson famously asked on a TV show in Seattle, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? In this instance, this lawyer, you know, I mean, man, this shit is a habit. You know, it's a bad habit. And I tell you, you know, and they tell women again and again the very first time it happens, if you don't stop that shit, welcome yourself to 20 years of it, or however many years until something seriously bad. These guys don't reform themselves unless they maybe have a drug problem. It happened to my great aunt once, and then she took a shot, picked herself up off the floor. Next day, she's making dinner this is her first husband. She put the dinner on the plate and leaned into his ear and said, "Next time you do that, I'll kill you when you sleep." Hey. If these guys were sitting on my lap, you're gonna be. I got. You see, he's feeling bold because he just got this.
Oh, Martial Arts Academy.
It's a second consecutive one, third one total. You know, you see
there
the
you
others.
go.
They called us out.
Yeah, they're clapping for you now. Yeah. All right. Anyway,
so what happened? Did the guy do it again, or what happened with your?
He fucking never did it again because what she made the claim is, strength has strength up against opportunity. Who do you think who do you think made the food that you're eating?
Right.
Who do you
or
think?
Even that weird thing where if you ever back in the day, like you hook up with somebody and then you wake up in the middle of the night and they're there staring at you and you're like,
well, there's a story about the woman beaten by her husband, and then one night she meticulously sewed him into the sheets. She sewed the top sheets into the bottom sheets, and then went after him with a bat while he's in there like a fly in a spider web, and broke every bone in his body. It's like
this actually purportedly based on a friend of Waylon Jennings. A friend of Waylon Jennings from Central California here said that Willie Nelson stopped drinking because he was a mean drunk, and at one point his wife got tired of being batted around, and she tied him to a chair in the middle of a whiskey drunk. He had passed out. He woke up tied to a chair, and she beat him with a baseball bat. And after that, he was like, you know what? I'm all right with weed. I'm okay with weed.
Maybe I didn't treat you.
Yeah, right. And it's painful, man. I interviewed Chris Blackwell this last week, and everybody was saying all these guys are nice things about Bob Marley, and all I was thinking about was Bob Marley beating his women. I just can't countenance it. I don't have a good. I mean, I don't expect anybody to have a good feeling, but about it, but necessarily, it violates my sense of fair play from top to bottom. So this guy is toast. It's toast.
Nate, is there anything you would suggest?
If I was Florida progressive activist, you just got to cut your losses, and that to me is the whole problem with representative government. Is you have this whole movement, and a campaign is many people, campaign staffers, volunteers, everything, and you've got activists and supporters, but it's all hinges on one person. So if that one person fucks up, boom, whole movement over.
And what I'm wondering about is how come it took them so long to figure this shit out?
Well, yeah, that I don't know, and I haven't read the article closely enough to know. But I think stuff is coming out in the divorce hearings.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
So but there are apparently there are police reports and medical accounts and everything else. So I don't know, man. I mean, people do horrible shit and people do great things, and sometimes it's the same person doing both, but this is not a survivable political thing, so I would cut my losses if I was them folks. Now, if I can throw a second curveball, KRS-One coming out and saying that, it was pretty convoluted. I watched the whole video, but he's basically arguing that you can, people accusing Africa Bambaataa of sexual abuse, Bambaataa, whatever, of child sexual abuse, are somehow attacking hip-hop, and this needs to be handled internally. And where KRS-One is coming from is he's like, black people need to unify around their leaders, and Bambaataa is a leader, therefore we need to unify. Bambaataa, whatever.
Bambaataa.
We got to unify around our leaders, and this is his idea of unifying around a leader, and I don't know. I don't even know how to frame the question. What do you do?
If you're who?
If you're who, I don't know. If you're KRS-One wanting to cling to your career, if you're a hip hop activist, somebody who considers themselves a young up and coming person in the hip hop community, do you go along with this line of thinking, or do you not? And how do you disavow KRS-One? You go first, Alexi.
I don't think you can disavow KRS-One because he will end your career. To this day. Look, I think that from KRS-One, he's coming from a certain perspective of protecting a certain culture I wanted to say an industry because that's what it is, but protecting a certain kind of culture. And I've seen a lot of times within certain kinds of groups, especially amongst creatives, there is, it's not universal, but you do have some folks that have a tendency to kind of circle the wagons, and because you could have some dynamics in place where something's more widespread than people think it is, or they're minimizing the impact of it because they're used to false allegations about them being made all the time. It's personal. They know this person. They haven't seen certain kinds of things. So I think for him, it's a combination of a number of things. I think if you're a reporter or somebody that's looking to become part of hip-hop, or a guardian or protector of hip-hop, and you do have this respect for Afrika Bambaataa and KRS-One, I think you try to do a little more research and digging and figure out where KRS-One is coming from, just so you can check it off, to see when you actually get the story from the horse's mouth as opposed to someone's interpretation of it, or what kind of mode he was in that day. I mean, KRS-One is someone, who can be extremely introspective. So I think that if your allegiances are to KRS-One and to hip-hop and not to individual victims, sussing out where KRS-One is coming from, and then making your way to the other side, as opposed to the other dynamic of starting with the victims and going to, again, this is purely as a fan. It's not like a legal analysis, or if I'm doing an investigation as a disinterested party. What would you do, Eugene?
First of all, I would tell KRS-One to shut the fuck up. That guy hasn't been significant in decades.
Since
Not significant.
Scott LaRock got killed.
Yeah, pretty much. And in fact, so if you were ghoulish enough, you could say, without Scott LaRock getting killed, fucking KRS-One is nowhere. So if you were a leader, you act like a leader. Even the Pope has had to back off, his marauding priest. You're going to support this guy? I mean, I'm not saying he's, you can't, every man can be above reproach. Good. Let your son intern with Bambaataa. Let your 15-year-old son go hang around at, he can help, right? He's going to, this whole idea that, I mean, I understand where Dave Chappelle was going. Look, we surrendering our own to the justice system is a mixed bag, because the justice system has been so traditionally bent against black folks. But in this case, a guy who's an ass marauder is an ass marauder, man. I mean, to wait with his 15-year-old girls or 15-year-old boys. This is not what breeds stable societies, and the guy has a clear-cut preference, because if he just wanted sausage, there's plenty of 18-year-old sausage out there. He is very specifically choosing people who are coming to him in great need, and subverting the enterprise by exploiting that need. The guy is a piece of shit. Allegedly a piece of shit.
Well, it's funny because even within that whole industry, though, you had this dynamic of what the baby groupies, like in L.A. with the rock acts in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, correct.
So I mean, this whole disgusting subculture
and those
stuff. And to this day, like, it was great, it was phenomenal, I wasn't abused.
Yeah, those women say that, and I tell you, there's a guy who's a fairly famous. A famous music instrument guy, and I really like this guy. I'm not going to mention his name, and he started making speakers and so forth when he was like 17. Ended up doing sound systems for everybody, the Zeppelin, Aerosmith, Rolling Stones, and now the dude is in his late 60s, early 70s, talking to me about music, and he's, man, those shows were great. He's reminiscing, and I'm into the reminiscence. I'm like, man, he's talking about, oh yeah, Altamont and Hendrix. I mean, the guy is a piece of rock history, and he's like, yeah, man, those 12-year-old girls out. I'm like, man, I you know what? I never spoke to do it again. I just could. He'd be sending me emails. Hey, I'm gonna be out. I go, I'm busy, bro. Just 12-year-old girls. And, you know what? A friend of mine was sexually abused by her father from the age she was like 9 until she was like 20, right? And one day she blurted out at fucking Thanksgiving dinner, "You blah 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 blah," and the whole the brothers all thought fuck, that makes a lot of sense. We just thought you were her favorite, and everybody turns to the father, and he says very much what Phillips, John Phillips from the Mamas and the Papas said. Hey, it was the '60s. Everybody was experimenting. You know what? Smoking a fucking doobie every now and then and taking acid and running around with your clothes off is very different from systematically raping your daughter for 20 years,
Yep.
Or so, whatever.
All right, back to your regularly scheduled show.
So fuck Bombada, fuck KRS-One, fuck both those guys allegedly.
Well, you're gonna love the question coming up later on today. You might see a storm off. So, Nate, you're the UFC. Days after your purchase by WME-IMG, ESPN's Darren Rovell tweeted, quote, "Not sure there's been an acquisition that has soured as quickly as the UFC. Have to wonder what protections WME-IMG has before the deal closes," end quote. Should you engage in proactive PR to prevent buyer's remorse from ruining the deal?
Well, they already took right to Twitter and just took right after Rovell, which had the net effect of increasing the attention to the shit he was saying. And Rovell, you got to remember, is the guy who initially broke the story about the sale that they denied, and yet all the details he reported were substantially correct months later when the whole story came out. So this, to me, though, smacks more of Rovell shit-talking and speculating and stirring the pot than having any facts or figures. He's not saying, hey, I'm talking to insiders at WME, or I'm talking to people at Michael Dell's hedge fund, and these guys are getting cold feet and buyer's remorse. No, he's just going, well, there's been a lot of bad UFC news ever since the purchase. I bet they're sorry, and I wish they had some way to get out of it, which is just total speculation. So I personally would not recommend elevating his profile on this bullshit. There's no point. I mean, people that follow Rovell are following him. People that aren't, and why bring it to their attention? I mean, It doesn't serve any purpose. I don't think it's got any greater PR impact. It's just one reporter.
Well, there's some ways. I mean, this is all part of a transition, and the UFC hasn't really completely made the transition. I mean, I'll give you an example of what I mean. Have you heard anything from Ari? You haven't really, have you?
No.
Anybody from William Morris tweeting out shit at all? This is very much part of the thin skin, flat management structure, strong head, a bald one kind of methodology. And I imagine at this point, Ari would have called him into his office and go, "What are you doing?" It was a fuck. Anybody who knows anything about how these deals are structured knows it's not that fucking simple. Unless the bald one shot the Pope. In which case there's probably a moral turpitude clause which says that you've so substantially damaged the brand that it makes going through these things are barges, man. They don't turn on a dime. It takes a lot for them to go forward, which makes the initial denials laughable, and it also takes a lot to stop. It's not like it's not. But it was understood that dude was just doing a speculative what if. What if the Nazis had won World War II? What if the South had won the Civil War? And he got exactly what he knew he would get given the tendency of the old UFC. The bald one jumped for the bait, and we got 2 days of news out of it.
Talk about prejudice. Philip K. Dick writes a book about the Nazis winning World War II. Everybody says it's genius. Now they're making a TV series about it. Newt Gingrich writes a heartfelt series of books about how great it would have been if the Confederates had won the Civil War. Where's his TV deal? That's what I'm asking. Where's Newt's TV deal? Again. Soft baby lowered expectations.
Yeah. He writes that from a place of it's like, who was that? Trent Lott. Yeah, if things had gone our way during the war, we wouldn't have had all these problems.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. Says
So how would you handle it, Nate?
I already said, just shut up. Don't just let the guy talk and move on. Just move on down the road. Rovell, he's a good reporter with a good track record. But he's not reporting anything. That tweet's just speculation. He's not. Yep. He's not saying anything. So just ignore it.
All right. Yeah. So, Nate, your former UFC Women's Bantamweight champion, Holly Holm. In March, Dana White told ESPN Russillo and Kanell, quote, "I don't know if Holly really knows what she lost. I think she has so much faith in the people that surround her, but it could have been so much bigger for her. And the sad part is, I don't think she even knows it. End quote.
Uh-huh.
In the wake of losing 2 fights in a row, what do you do to get back in the good graces of the UFC?
Holly Holm needs to win fights, and she needs to shut her mouth and take whatever deals they'll throw at her, because she's seen the mountaintop, and she lost. You know, she went over the mountain and then fell back down, and now she's fallen way back down, and now she's about to learn that if Dana White doesn't like you and you're winning, he'll put up with your crap and he'll book the fights he needs to book to make his money. But once you're losing, you're not going to get any hand up, and that's the position she's in. She came into the UFC like there was a delay in signing her for several months because her people wanted more money, which is totally smart business and totally fair. However, it came at the cost of getting in Dana's good graces. I don't know if she even had a route to Dana's good graces since he was so attached to Ronda Rousey and the whole Ronda Rousey success and legend. So she was between a rock and a hard place. But the fundamental thing is do your job and win fights. And she's failing to do that part. So just get back out there, train harder, keep your head down, keep your mouth shut, and tell your agent to rein it in.
So that sound. What is that sound?
Listen. I can't believe you're missing it. I can't believe you're missing it.
I miss everything all the time.
This is like Columbo says. And one other thing. This is like the second time in as many weeks that there's been a broadside fired at Jackson Wink. What's that about? You know, Johnny Boney Joni, he's been surrounded by garbage. He needs to clean house. Who was he talking about? The guy from the fucking mini mart, his enabler? I got a photograph that was tweeted and then deleted from Johnny Boney's site of the mini mart dude next to him. I was going to put it up on my Twitter feed at one point, so if you want to see it, @EUGENE'S Robinson. Who's the bald one talking about specifically?
Probably her business manager, not.
I don't know. I don't know who it is.
The whole posse. Being with Jackson Wink does not help you with.
Nah, not when they're Thank you, man. Not when there's stumble upon stumble. And then also, here's the other thing. The claim I make on Knuckle Up. She's golden. People say, "Oh, the biggest tweet I got during the fights when I was in New York was, oh, is she lost battalion? Is she lost battalion? Is she lost battalion?" I go, fuck, as long as Ronda has got a breath in her body, is there any other fight that you want to see? Is there any other fight narrative that you think needs to be addressed? Whether it's Ronda avenges her loss, Ronda's back after the thing that so she's going to fight Amanda Nunes. Nobody gives a fuck about that fight.
Well, they'll come back for Ronda. They'll come back to see Ronda, but not as many of them. It's going to be diminishing returns. But I think that's what
No, it's foolish. That's completely that's Joe Silva napping. That's not even the easy way out. That's just it lacks a certain kind of career. I mean, you want to see her avenge the loss. If it was anybody else, they would be saying that. But the feeling is that she's not gonna. She pulled a Chris Weidman. It's like, oh, I'm not feeling this. I can't open my jaw. I can't. And then all of a sudden, when Cupcake gets the belt, she's suddenly healthy again. What is that? You know. So now Cupcake has lost the belt. That no juice for Nunes. You know who Nunes needs to fight in my mind? And I never got.
Cyborg.
No, Cyborg, or at the very least, Shevchenko.
Yeah, I mean that's the logical fight.
That's the only fight that makes sense. But for Ronda, the only road to the return road to significance sits straight on Holly's lap. And until something else happens and make that not the case, Holly's golden. Now, can she go out and blow 2 or 3 more fights? Definitely not. Will she go out and blow 2 more fights? That depends on how big of a door was opened into her wheelhouse, right. And her competitors can watch tape and go, oh, you know, she doesn't. Yeah, right. So exactly. So what did she reveal that the opposition can use in that fight? I don't know, but I'm still seeing the sheen of gold coming off her. Somebody made the very clever, but I'm not going for it necessarily conspiracy thing of pre-USADA, post-USADA. Interesting.
I'm not buying that with her.
Somebody else said she's been tested 14 times in 12 months. How the fuck is that going to be possible?
But with her, like the failings she's making are fundamental technical mistakes.
Right.
You'd think a champion boxer would not make. I mean, she's lunging into punches, stuff like that. She only has a few combinations, can't adjust during the fight. That's not something you get in a pill. That's something she got
Correct.
or didn't get in a gym.
Yeah, but she was
over a
also,
period of
remember,
time.
we had this thing where before she came to the UFC, you know, she had this great record, knocking out people, and then she got there, and people were like, oh, this is who you got? And then when she knocked out Ronda, people were like, oh, maybe she was hiding something.
Well, she claimed she was dogging it. She
Claimed
claimed
it. No, Winklejohn did too. So so that happens, and then you're like, oh, wow, okay, we're going to see this new knockout artist, and you don't. And so you're like, oh, God, this is exactly what we thought she was after the first. But here's the other thing with Eugene said.
Like Denny Green said, to paraphrase, she was who we thought she was.
But the thing is,
rest in peace.
In wake of the whole Bellator senior circuit, I have to agree with Eugene on this one. She has, until she faces Ronda again, she always has that card to a match and to the fight. And whether it's a year from now, 10 years from now, 15, you think it's a joke, but I'm serious. Like,
no, I don't think it's a joke at all.
Avoid that fight. If I'm her, you might want to say, like, okay, how long can I be relevant without fighting Ronda, and just whip out that Ronda card, you know, like get out of jail free, get out of Lost Battalion free.
Also, and I look at it the other. I look at it the other way. I look at it like she's doing Ronda the favor, you know. I mean,
how by agreeing to fight Ronda or by dropping a whole bunch of fights?
Well, no. I mean, the question mark is for Ronda. Like the question, like Weidman wants to now. He wants to fight Bisping. Now he wants to fight. Hey, now he wants to. No, man. The question mark is in your side. Like Bisping said, fight the fight you were gonna fight. You know, I mean, look at Conor McGee. He could have easily said, you know, it was funny doing this adventure, this division hopping. I'm gonna, you know, I gotta go now, Jose. I'm gonna give him his comeback RDA. I'm gonna fuck that. He said, you know, I gotta do this again. I just let me go again. You know, some blue belt tapped me out. I was being a jerk off and gave him my back. It was like I never met him before. I was getting his name all wrong. I said, "Come on, buddy, the bell rings. Take my back." And the guy, like, I mean, I knew I was in trouble the first 10 seconds. You could tell, right? So the guy goes for an arm bar. I fucking put the arm in. I block, and then he gets me in a loop choke. And I go, "Fuck, I think he's got it. He might have." I tap out. So instead of going, "Good move, buddy. You got me," you know, even though I was a dickhead, and then I said, let's go again. We went 4 rounds fucking total. How often does it happen that 2 people go 4 rounds total? I drove this 4 rounds total. He didn't tap me again, but I couldn't get anything up on the guy. I could not even the score. So I leave doubly humiliated. But you know what it is? That's true belief. That's not cynical opportunism. Cynical opportunism is I'm going to preserve the province of doubt. Let that guy think he got lucky because I gave him my back, and I walk away untested, untried, whatever. Run away to live and train and fight another day. Nah, I went 3 more times with the guy. 4 times total. Could have put him away.
Surratt hasn't demoted you yet?
No, he wasn't there. He had left.
I see.
In disgust, he had left. So this is the same. So Holly. There is no Holmocaust here. She's golden. And suddenly I'm seeing news stories today on Yahoo. Ronda's trainer, Ronda's workout. Says she's healthy again. She's training again. What happened to the babies thing? And now, you know, where am I going to go and who am I and crying on TV? Suddenly she's healthy. You know, and again, it's a minefield for Miesha Tate, too. How many more? She could lose to Ronda one more time and have that mean nothing to anybody. It's just part of a trilogy. You know, it shows people what we already knew, and she's still golden. She loses to Nunes again, she's done. You know, so we should.
All right. Well, Eugene, your Hillary campaign manager, Robby Mook.
Mook. Mama Luke.
All this chitter-chatter about Russian hackers leaking DNC emails, poisoning the minds of Bernie Sanders supporters against Hillary's campaign and leading to a Donald Trump victory. Trump's campaign says it's crazy. You've been battered. What does it matter?
Well, I'm looking at right now on my screen. I don't know if you guys have it. Breaking news, New York Times. Donald J. Trump called on Russia to hack Hillary Clinton's email essentially sanctioning a foreign, and that's all I can see. You know what, man? What is it that people call it, and that Obama at one point when he ran, maybe the first time, called it, and he goes, this is the silly season. You know, I mean, outside the fact that there's nothing at all silly about this election in the slightest, nothing at all in the slightest silly about this. You know, I mean, we still have many more November. I think they moved it back to 14th, the election to the 14th. So of November, a lot of shit can happen, and what we are riding a seesaw. So the question is, will this shift the narrative one way or another? Will, you know, because this in a lot of people's minds ties into, of course they hacked it because you're using this janky fucking private server in your garage, and it's just
separate from the DNC thing.
It is separate from the DNC, but you got to talk about the public mind and how these things cohere around
the DNC hack seems to be somebody was using their kid's name that was publicly available as their passport, and that person had access to it.
Yeah, but what I'm just saying is that this is it's just all part of the same thing. You know, should she make hay about him, like I'm reading this headline now, sanctioning a hit by foreign powers? This is you know where I think that she's gonna win this. I think she's actually gonna win in the debates, which are forthcoming, when they get to real policy questions. You know, somebody said something great today, and I think it was maybe Paul Begala. They said, you know what, Trump's healthcare proposal is? We're gonna take care of that. That's it. That's a 6-word policy prescription. That's it. That's all you need to know. We're gonna take care of that.
But nobody votes based on policy. That's
correct. That's true. But at some point, how many times are you going to say that in a debate before people go, you gotta have
to watched him do that for a whole year, and he mopped the floor at the Republican field. If you think
you know what, this is like the guy who told the mafia that he could blow his load once every hour for 24 hours. If you read Josh Allen Friedman's story, Tales of Times Square, out on Feral Press, and the mafia, it was $60,000 back in late 1970 dollars. They sent a doctor from Colombia to prove that he was actually blowing his load, and the guy he even jerked off one time before he did it, just to, as an act of bravado. And then going down to the last hour, he's about to lose all his money, he finally blows his load, and somebody from Screw Magazine is there, and they said, well, how did you do it, man? I guess it was Josh Allen Friedman was the guy from Screw Magazine. He goes, well, tell you guys never should have let me pick the women. In other words, picking the women, I was able to achieve a variety enough so that each one was completely different. I never could have done that with one woman. I never could have done that with 2 women. I had to have essentially 24 different women to make this happen. A field of 17 is easy because it's, low energy is different from Lion Ted, is different from, is what?
Little Marco.
Little Marco. These are all different series of tweets. These are different series of attacks. This is a brand new next story of outrageousness. The same thing with the same person for 5 fucking months. You're crazy. No.
Well, you've wandered far afield from the original question, but I am glad that you caught this new thing that Trump just said, because Trump just jiu-jitsu'd Robby Mook and this whole line of attack right on their asses. And I was freaked out by this whole line. First off, I'm freaked out by the prospect of Putin and his government resources directly being accused of hacking and manipulating a democratic election in the U.S., because that's stepping over the line for Pooty Poot. But I'm also very leery when the FBI says, oh my gods, totes foreign government hacking. I remember, didn't they say the Sony hack was by North Korea? And didn't all the hacking experts came out and say, maybe, but you guys didn't come close to proving it? And 3 years later, the hacking experts are still arguing about whether or not North Korea hacked Sony. To me, if you're Robby Mook and you come out and accuse a foreign power, particularly the most powerful foreign power in the world aside from ourselves, of doing this, unless you have airtight proof, that's deeply irresponsible thing, because what if Hillary did storm to victory on some kind of Trump is a Manchurian candidate thing? And this isn't just something Robby Mook said. He says that. The next day, Josh Marshall at Talking Points Memo has a whole thing linking Trump to Putin on the business side. Kevin Drum over at Vice is saying, oh my God, it's totes true, the Russian intelligence and WikiLeaks are linked and everything like that. And so you're betting the whole house on this kind of, we're going to be the tough guy party, and we're going to go out there and teach that Putin a lesson. And I'm like, fucking hell, you guys are making World War III a goddamn campaign promise, which is insane. But here's Trump coming out today and saying, Russia, if you're listening, this was at a press conference. This isn't some shit they dug up. He just said this today in public. Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be mightily rewarded by our press. And he does a number of things there. He gets it back onto the talk of the emails and her insecure server thing. He blames the press for rewarding this kind of talk and feeding the leakers. You know, if nobody covered what WikiLeaks put out, not many people would hear about it. So he's blaming the press, and then just totally he's taking it straight on. He's like, basically, yeah, you know, he's letting the Times get the headline of Trump calls on Putin, and they're playing this boogeyman card. You know, I talked to some of my yokel friends and people who watch TV and aren't in the political process about the email thing, and they were like, nah, as soon as Mook said that, I was like, nah, he's just trying to distract from the emails. And this Trump has taken this whole big, huge, what they thought was going to be a fusillade of attacks on him, and he's just turning it into another distraction on the trail. And I don't think you can expect much more. When you pull bullshit, somebody's going to pull bullshit back, and Trump's a better bullshitter.
U.S. consensus grows that Russia hacked DNC.
Yeah, they're saying it's the same shit. I mean, if these are the
Julian Assange, the WikiLeaks leader, timed the email release for the convention.
Oh, that's obvious, man. That's obvious. And anybody who's surprised,
he said it weeks ago in interviews. He said, "Watch what's going to happen."
Yeah, no, Assange said. I mean, Obama's had Assange under house arrest for the better part of a decade. Of course, he hates the Democrats. I mean, you know,
you mean Assange, the purported rapist?
The alleged rapist, yeah. He's had, but you know, my wife prosecutes crimes like that. A crime about, oh, he had consensual sex with a woman and then later he took off the rubber without her permission. You could never take that to a jury in the U.S., which sucks, but you can barely get a jury in the U.S. to convict on violent felonious assault. Remember when Lloyd Irvin's students attacked the woman in the parking garage and they had it on fucking videotape and they left her out to die in the cold? Allegedly or whatever. And the juries bought it because she had partied with several dudes in the gym. I mean, you could never get 5 years in prison for what Assange is accused of. Never, never, never.
Yeah,
and then
unless you're in Sweden.
Unless it was a brother, that's it.
Even in Sweden, they wouldn't get him on that charge. What they want to do is get him to Sweden and then extradite him to the U.S. on charges of espionage. Is what they want to do.
But you know, you call it jujitsu, and then, you know, there's an interesting thing about jujitsu. You know, if there's such a thing as the right move at the wrong time. You know, I mean, on day 1 or day 2 of the fucking convention, you bust. Man, does it have legs? Does it have legs to last through the remainder of this week?
Right.
I don't know,
well,
man.
It's already made the big story of the convention. It feeds into what's the big story of the convention, which is that the Sanders supporters are not getting on board with Clinton, which is mostly bullshit and has been played up by the media. They're firing shotgun mics at a small group of delegates in the California delegation and making it because they want conflict. They're trying to tell a story here and get people to pay attention. And it's the old Dana White thing, hey, fight. And so they're exaggerating this conflict between the Sanders supporters and the Clinton supporters, but these emails totally inflamed the Sanders supporters. And so it was a pretty good hit for Assange, but I got to say, WikiLeaks doing shit like releasing all the credit card numbers of all the donors to the DNC is total bullshit and very similar to the bullshit they just pulled in Turkey where they doxed thousands of Turkish women in the teeth of a fucking coup and crackdown. So they're very irresponsible actors. But if the DNC hadn't had all their credit card information in plain text in the first place, it never would have happened. I mean, when Ashley Madison, you know, gets compromised and their customer data was insecure, everybody was like, boy, that's sleazily Ashley Madison. They can't keep their credit card. What are they even doing with credit card numbers on file? And the DNC had the shit in totally, I mean, way worse than what Ashley Madison did. It's like, why isn't anybody saying, hey, DNC, get your shit together and don't keep people's credit card information?
Okay. Yeah, this is like the last time I was in a moment like this. A guy was upset that I had sex with his wife, and I remember telling him, "You're overreacting." I feel like saying that to Kid Nate right now. I think you're overreacting.
Have you ever had your credit card shit leaked? Do you know what a pain in the ass it is? Do you know how many Democratic donors are having to leak their credit card?
You have to have
decent credit card numbers.
You have to have decent credit for that to make a difference. You know, the guys at Ashley Madison sent me the blackmailers sent me emails. So we found your name on Ashley Madison. I go, well, so and what? You know, I ran a porn site for 10 years. What do you mean?
Another. They don't have to contact you to start spending money on your dime.
You know what? I could give my fucking credit card to a homeless guy, and he would be dead 2 days from now. If you were max, what?
I don't have good credit, therefore fuck anybody who does.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I actually have great credit, but I don't have a lot of headroom. Fundamentally, I don't give a shit. You know.
Well, another thing is, I think there'd be a lot of red flags from the company. There'd be a lot of red flags going off for YouTube as well.
Like, secure.
Yeah, man, I'm not. It's a tempest. Here's a teapot. Here's a tempest. I'm really not. You know, I'm keenly attuned to certain levels of outrage, but for me, this is.
I'm not saying it's an outrage. I'm saying it's deep-seated incompetence.
Yeah. Well,
and they need to get their shit together. I mean, the WikiLeaks shit that you didn't put in an insecure place.
But Wiki. I mean, there's enough of that stuff to go around for sure. I mean, if you think the next 5 months are not going to be full of all kinds of disturbing disclosures from both sides, I mean, already they're talking about Trump the rapist, and I mean, it's going to be 5 months of the dirtiest dirt, like Captain Hook said in Peter Pan, who's the swiniest swine in the world. I would have you know, in musical theater, I played Captain Hook. But in any case, you know, there's going to be the allegations of rape, the allegation of financial improprieties. If you think the tax thing is going to go away, man,
the tax thing has some legs, and that's an angle of attack they should be pushing. But I just think
they're going to push it.
I think if Putin can be linked to the hacks, by all means, the FBI, the NSA, everybody who has factual information should be coming forward and saying that. But Robby Mook is not an investigator of hacking. Robby Mook has got a pretty privileged position, and people are listening to him. And for him to come out and link a foreign government, particularly a nuclear-armed foreign government, that we're in tension with on multiple fronts in Ukraine, in Syria, potentially in the Baltics, for him to come out and say this and then like link at the same time that Democratic media or Democratic-aligned media is trying to link Trump with Putin in the business, they're making a concerted effort to making this is our attack on Trump. This is our big rollout.
Okay, let me read to you what I'm reading. Mr. Trump's call was an extraordinary moment at a time when Russia is being accused of meddling in the U.S. presidential election. His comments came amid questions about the hacking of the DNC committee's computer service, which researchers have concluded was likely the work of 2 Russian intelligence agencies. Later in the news conference, when asked if he was really urging a foreign nation to hack into the private email server of Mrs. Clinton or at least meddle in the nation's election, he dismissed the question. That's up to the president, Mr. Trump said, before finally telling the female questioner to be quiet.
Oh, Lord. Here we go.
Again, the media is all in an uproar, and everybody who reads the New York Times thinks Trump's an idiot. Well, newsflash, everybody who reads the New York Times already thought Trump was an idiot. This is not making any headway with the hardcore Republican people. None.
Well, also
hardcore Republicans are not necessarily the same as hardcore Trump supporters. So.
Well, true, but I mean, this is not going to chip away with Trump's base or probably his swing vote. But
is this to chip away his base, or is it to energize lazy Democratic voters and also
lazy Democratic voters don't get excited over let's have the Cold War again. Lazy Democratic voters don't get excited over let's have the Cold War again. Lazy Democratic voters tend to be the people who remember when the Secretary of State went to the UN and lied about the fucking Iraq invasion. I mean, me personally, I've been paying attention to this shit for 25-something years. in 1991, when they're bragging about how Patriot missiles are going through chimneys, I'm like, oh, wow, those Patriot missiles are really something. But I was paying attention when they followed up on that shit 5 years later and said, oh, by the way, that was all bullshit, and the Patriot missiles were just randomly flying all over the fucking place. And so I have, you know, I mean, how many times can the FBI drag some developmentally disabled person forward and say, we caught this guy in a scheme to blow up a bridge, and then you look into it and reveal, oh, well, the FBI agent recruited all the people involved in the scheme. He's the guy who brought the explosives. He's the guy who showed them where the bridge was. And you're just like, you're wasting our time with this nonsense. It's like these people have zero credibility with Sanders supporters and people like that. These are the very people this shit has no power to motivate.
Well, this brings us into our teachable moment. Nate, disaffected. The takeaway from the disaffected voter. Because you're Bernie Sanders. Well, today's topic, self-destruction, it really ain't the Democratic audience that's bugging. It's one or two suckers, ignorant brothers, trying to rob and steal votes from one another. You got caught in the mid. So to crush this problem, here's what you did. You and Elizabeth Warren got yourselves together so that you could unite and fight for what's right. But despite urging your supporters to put your heads together, stop the violence, and make a change, they don't want to be in the same gang with Hillary. How do you collect your supporters with intellect to revolve, to evolve to self-respect? Because if you don't keep yourselves in check, it's a Trump presidency.
Well, the thing with this is the polling data is very clear that the vast majority of Sanders supporters are going to vote for Clinton. The problem is you need those Sanders supporters to go out and knock on doors and bring 5 friends to vote. This is a turnout election. This is not a swing voter election. There's nobody being persuaded here. It's just a matter of, are the historically lazy and bad voting Democratic elements going to get out and vote? And the people who vote most of the time are gonna. But what we had in 2008 and 2012 was this historic wave of sometime Democratic voters voting and bringing their friends to vote who would never come close to a voting booth before. And so this dissension and everything reduces your chances of getting that going. And I think Bernie fucked up a long time ago, letting his boy John Weaver run a conspiracy campaign for months after it was clear to anybody who could do math that Sanders wasn't going to win the primary. And if he had just said, hey, we might not win, but we're pushing some issues and we're going to fight to the end, that's one thing. But when your message is, these super delegates, they're manipulating the system and there's strings being pulled and dirty backroom deals. And you know, that shit happens all the time. Ask Howard Dean about that. Ask Joe Biden why his run didn't get any support. But that's just how the game is played. And going out there and publicly messaging, especially when your voters tend to be younger and more idealistic, this is the first time being involved in politics, you're playing with fire and you're seeing the output. However, there's also a lot of blame to go with the Clinton campaign on this, because they're the very same people who put the word out in California, hey, if you want to be involved in Democratic politics again next year or 4 years from now, you better not be putting your name down as a Bernie delegate. And so they eliminated all the sort of rational players, and they got left with a self-selected pool of whack jobs and dead-enders, and these are the people you're seeing walk out of the convention. So both sides in this screwed up pretty bad. I don't think it's enormous, but the media wants to push this story, and we'll see how it comes out in the end. As for Bernie, he did great. He gave a great speech. He's on board with Clinton. He's going to be campaigning. I don't know what else he can do at this point. He already squandered his campaign money on TV instead of organizing. You know, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm feeling like very much like a Nero. Yeah, and I got my violin. I got my violin tucked under my chin, and I'm fiddling while Rome burns. It's like my attitude largely is, I'm not fucking with you guys. I'm not fucking with you guys. You don't go out to vote, and you get yourself a President Trump. Woe betide you.
And you.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I am part of. There were, after the Brexit vote, there was a large, substantial percentage of the people in Britain who were saying, like, should we even let old people vote? You know, because their skin in the game is very different when their expectation is they're not going to have to live through this shit, that they got 10 years left on this planet. Why not fuck shit up? Why not return things? I mean, it's a complex series of emotions that go into this whole nostalgia movement. I'm not saying I'm there. I'm 53. I got, presumably, knock on wood, a bunch of time left, or melanin, or whatever this table is made of. I got a bunch of time left, but the reality of it is, I really need things to hold financially. I need the course to be stayed for at least another 8 years. I could settle for 4 years for all my plans to stay solvent. But I'm in a substantially better position than anybody who's 22, 23, or 24 who's not named Mark Zuckerberg, you know. So you guys want to sulk, want to sit in the corner, you want to vote for the Green Party, you want to vote for Gus Johnson, you want to send a message that enables the Trump presidency, go ahead. Go ahead.
But you're not answering the question. The question's for Bernie Sanders, and what can Sanders do?
At this point now,
the show has a format, Eugene. Stick with the format.
Yeah. Sanders done all he can do. I mean, do
you agree with me that his campaign played with fire, and now they're paying the cost by pushing that bullshit?
Of course. Yep. But you're not alone. I mean, I think I read this yesterday in the Atlantic or the New Yorker. A lot of people are making the claim. It's like, look, you know, you fucking kicked that hornet's nest, and look what you got. You know, I mean, if he had hoped to sail off into the sunset with a bunch of good memories, that's not. Do you think he's going to be happy November 15th if fucking Trump is a president? No, he won't feel as unrepentant as Ralph Nader did, but he won't feel unrepentant as Ralph Nader did. But I would actually say he's probably going to feel pretty bad about it in total. The only way he can get himself out is so that he wakes up on November 15th.
It's not Sanders' fault if Clinton loses to fucking.
No, there are many cooks.
In no way, shape, or form. And
no, there are many cooks in that kitchen, but in the dark midnight of his soul, you know, he'd be sitting around thinking, God damn it, this is exactly not what we wanted. So for him to, you know, like Travis Bickle, clean like my conscience, what he needs to do is what's he going to do now? Go back to the Senate.
He's going to hit the trail. He's going to be campaigning.
That's what he needs to do. Yeah. That's what he needs to do.
It's a transition move.
It's like, okay, you guys
mobilize people already.
Right.
Go in.
You guys can sulk all you want. I'm going to be out there knocking on doors. We got to make this happen.
But even though we got to wrap up, I got to spank the Clinton organization for some massive fuck-ups we haven't even touched on. Picking Tim Kaine going into this, if they'd pick Elizabeth Warren or Sherrod Brown, some of the progressives would have been excited about. This whole narrative would have a lot less oomph to it. There's a lot more of a, we're all in this together. I heard you, 45% of Democratic voters who voted for somebody else. I heard you. I want your vote. Instead, we got, we picked Obama's butt boy, because it was his turn, just like we picked me because it was my turn. And did I mention fuck you people? I don't give a shit. Not that that's what you were saying or thinking, but that's the impression a lot of people got. Mm-hmm. And then to fire Debbie Wasserman Schultz and give her an honorary position on the campaign, again, anybody who knows how the game is played knows that was just bullshit, that they gave her a title just to send her on her way out the door, just as a thanks for playing card. But to the Sanders voters, who are not very sophisticated, to say the least, some of them, that looked like a big, here's this lady who gets red-handed, caught cheating, manipulating the system, and now we're going to put her on the Hillary campaign and reward this behavior. That's just dumb optics, and the Clinton campaign needs to pull out and see where people are coming from.
But you are shocked that there's gambling going on here.
I'm not shocked by any of this shit. I'm just saying there are people who are shocked, especially when they see it in print.
No, I mean, if Hillary will be known for anything, they did a breakdown of Whitewater where they said, okay, look, you got to give us who's the chief of staff came and said, look, you got to turn this shit over, let these guys. And Bill talked about it yesterday. Said she refused. Somebody said, you know what? They spent years fucking with that and turned up nothing. She could have given the papers right away. What's amazing to me are the unforced errors, and it is now not a bug, it's a feature of the fucking campaign. I mean, you didn't have the whole colored people time joke. I don't know what it is that what kind of myopia has set in so that you so consistently fuck up, but it has become. I'm no longer. I remember driving through Montana and trying to avoid hitting rabbits because the rabbits run for the light at night. There are tons of rabbits, and then I realized you can't avoid hitting the rabbits. They run for the tires, so you're better off just driving straight, and maybe they make it, maybe they don't. It's the same thing. This minefield of this election. They're Wasserman Schultz. What kind of favors? How do you have to buy her off that you got to keep her around? And until the very last second, she was going to gavel open the fucking convention.
Well, did you see the article in Politico where Hillary's people, Podesta, who's a big player in the Clinton campaign, came out and completely shitbagged Obama for that. He said, we wanted to get rid of her 8 months ago, 10 months ago, 15 months ago, and Obama was just like, I don't want the headache. Y'all fire her when y'all take over. And, I mean, when you get the Democrats start blaming each other, especially when people blame Obama, who's the most popular political figure in the country right now, as hard as that is to believe, you got a circular firing squad and just a deep-seated institutional incompetence and oblivion.
And then what was the first one you underscored? There was the second one was the Wasserman Schultz thing. What was the first one?
The Tim Kaine pick. Like, what does
Tim Kaine. Well, you know what? There was I was ready to shit all over that, but then I remembered, one, I had been a Tim fan Kaine of old. I mean, old of a couple of decades ago.
He's a good guy. Don't get me wrong. I've met Tim.
But there are positives connected to Tim Kaine.
Yeah.
One, he's the vet thing. He's the only. So this heads
military.
Right, heads off the Benghazi thing. Yep. We got a very serious fucking war hero guy. Number two.
Yeah, that works so well with John Kerry.
Well, but John Kerry's a fundamentally different. He's a patrician. This is very different. You don't get the sense that the silver spoon thing. He doesn't vibe the same way. Two, he's the only Southerner on the fucking ticket. Right?
Southerners are all voting for Trump. Maybe.
So he's the only. Three, the whole Spanish piece, it doesn't seem to be a pandery pick. There's no Julian Castro. There's no Cory Booker, Cory Booker is strong enough. He was just at Ozzy Fest. I've seen him do his thing. He's strong enough. He can ride out the next 4 years, maybe have his turn down the road. So I don't think it's a complete. The other guy, Vilsack. That would have been a crap to bed move.
No excuse for that.
This is not that much of a crap to bed move, No,
it's not entirely a crap to bed move. I just think that the timing and the optics of it were not ideal. Like, for instance, if she had announced Kaine, she didn't have to announce him last Friday. She could have let us guess all the way up to Thursday night about who is going to be her VP pick. And she didn't have to do the timing of it, and she could have weighed some more factors. To come out just when she did, the timing was time to agitate the Sanders people.
But but and there have been worse picks. Like I remember, Sarah Palin,
Thomas Eagleton.
I remember Thomas Eagleton, man. I felt bad for that guy. That was bad.
He shouldn't have been a VP pick. I don't care.
But you don't want to be in a position, Eugene, where you're comparing. It's like, okay, yeah, it's not the worst that could be done. One thing that was mentioned earlier, it's going to be fascinating to me, is as we go into the Lost Battalion, Bernie's followers, given their age, right, the hardcores, and the ones who did not get caught up with, wait a second, he's just like this old dude.
And one quick time out, the vast majority of Bernie voters are very young, but if you look at the dead enders in the Bernie or bust thing at the convention, they tend to skew a bit more middle-aged. These are some hardcore lefties who've been fighting with the other moderate lefties for decades. So
but this also, I think, plays into it as well, is the fact that now that he has to start campaigning for Hillary in wake of everything that happened, now it's going to be interesting to see if he's seen as tainted. This guy who had this pure intent, this guy who was speaking for us, this guy who knew where we were coming from, they got to him, right? So you have different kinds of. It's going to be really fascinating to see how it plays out. Eugene, any?
Hold on. I want to read a text I got from a friend, and they said, anyone still undecided or mad about Bernie is just an asshole. Thank you very much.
There's plenty of assholes and a lot of them.
Yep, there you go. Anyway.
The Lost Battalion, any additions this week?
Not anyone from the fight world. Despite people getting on me for, fucking Holly and Gil. I said I never said that would knuckle up. I said I just want to analyze where they were in relation to that. And I've got a lot of pushback from people going, you're a Giblet nut jumper. How can you not see he was hopelessly outclassed? And and I just now had Sorrell say, not even 15 minutes ago, when he looks back over that division, he said, he thought that given the skill set, he said, first of all, on that team, Gil is one of the best fighters ever in terms of total skill set, like all around skill set. So he expected that, at the very least, the guy would be educable, and capable of filling in the dead spots of where he was. He goes, but in total, he didn't do as badly against Edson, given the layoff, given the age, given that time. So people say, oh, how could you not put this guy in a lost battalion? He's not lost battalion. He's not making claims of future glories that'll never arrive. But I'm going to have to veer off the fight path and say, lost battalion, those hardcore Sanders supporters. Sorry, man. They're standing in the cage talking about there's going to be no, there's not. No, there's not. Oh yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump. Okay. Well, you have no moves. This is the point at which your only move left is to kick over the chessboard and accuse the other person of cheating and say you won and then go home.
After voting?
Oh, they're not going to vote? Why vote?
I'll vote green or whatever.
Yeah, I mean.
And then when Trump comes in, it's going to be like, oh, I didn't know he'd be like this. I had no clue.
Yeah, I mean, people, look, you still, what about the people who voted for George W. twice, And I'm saving my Karl Rove story. People wanted me to dip into the Karl Rove story just to flame Kid Nate right now, and I'm not going to do it. I'm going to save it, and only because I'm still thinking about it. But it was one of the heavier interactions I've had. Next Knuckle Up, I'm going to make it a centerpiece of the show because it's really blown my mind and changed my worldview in a lot of ways, in an uncomfortable way. But
so if you disappear within, it's like, what happened to Eugene? It's like this unknown story.
It's yesterday's news. He's persona non grata in the Republican Party and has been for a long time.
Yep. But anyway, I mean, I think that do whatever you want. If you're I mean, that's the thing. You as a Bernie Sanders supporter, if you're a hardcore, I'm watching people on Facebook, and I'd say it's about 50% of them are coming around in a comfortable way. The other 50% who are digging in their heels, crying and screaming, and it's the fix. Okay.
It's also still soon. I mean, the fact that again, we have to remember. Yes, it's not like it's years away, but the election is not next week.
That's enough.
All right, and there's a lot of time. We all see what happens when individuals thought that they had stuff in the bag, and this is how things are going to sway. They haven't even debated yet.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of seesawing back and forth. There's still a tax issue. There's still the guys who are suing him. There's still a Trump University. There's still God knows what with the Clintons. You don't fucking know. I mean, I can't be the only one who's listening to Bill sit there yesterday, and I was just gripping how he was gonna do. He's going in 1991, in 1993. Yeah. It's like. In 2003, oh man, that guy is, it was like Matrix-like. He just Neo. It's like I did that thing with when My Night with a Nazi, that piece I wrote for Ozzy, where I'm talking to the Nazi in the back of the car, and he's like, "Yes, 1945, boom, 2002. Hey, what happened? What about all those years?" Man, it made me very uneasy. So we don't know. It's way too early to be getting hysterical about stuff,
But one
except
thing
that it's a complete shit show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that much is guaranteed. That much is guaranteed.
And the next president is going to have a hellaciously bad term.
And you know what? I'm thinking. I don't know, man. I can't help but thinking somebody's being played, and if I don't know who it is, it could be me.
I think it is. I think the obsession with attacking Bernie supporters. I think the difference between the Cruz split at the RNC and what's happening now.
Vote your conscience.
Bernie's on team Hillary, so they're attacking his voters, which I think is all. I don't, as a political person, never attack voters. You want every vote you can get. You just start making cases. How can you get those people to like you? When you start attacking voters, you start losing more voters than the ones you're mad at. Like it's fun to call hippies names and tell them when they're stupid, but newsflash, almost all voters are stupid. Your goal is to manipulate them into voting for you, not have the satisfaction of getting to tell them they're stupid. But with the Cruz comes out against Trump, and his supporters didn't, and they're able to demonize Cruz and isolate that. And it's a very interesting thing that I'm seeing from people I know in Texas Republican politics. There's a big split going on right now between Cruz people who split away from Cruz when he pulled that shit, and are going with Trump harder, and Cruz people that are dead enders. So anyway, it's an interesting dynamic, and it's doom. It's doomsday. Panic, people. Panic.
Yeah, you know, when people are running willy and nilly, I'm not.
When am I not running willy and nilly? I'm always in panic mode.
Yeah, that's okay. You know, as long as you're running in a serpentine fashion, you're probably okay.
Make sure you zig and you zag. Don't be like.
I'll be standing over here, quiet, waiting. You know what I'm waiting for?
That blue belt to come back?
No, I'm waiting for that guy to show up. Like Beria, I'm waiting for a final determination on the state of the corpse. November 15th, I'm going to be making the claim, man, I was a Trump guy from way back. I remember him.
You can have the Russians hack into the servers and delete all episodes if I did it. It's like,
exactly.
What you at a show? No, what are you talking about?
Hey, I was.
What are you talking about?
I was completely consistent with, I wanted him to put Jeb out. I wanted him to put Ted out. I wanted him to, you know, I needed him to get those true believing creeps out, those religious lunatics and ideologues
Here we
out.
are, and he's presumably offered Mike Pence the whole keys of the kingdom. What he was offering Kasich was, I'll let you run the administration. So it's
but we're in Godfather territory now. You think he feels comfortable having the Koch's chosen son hanging around? Nah, I think it's equal peril on both sides. If I'm Mike Pence and I slip in the shower, I'm starting to ask some hard questions. You know, how'd that soap get there? I don't use that soap. It's not my soap. Why'd I slip on it? And what are those nails doing on the floor? You know, I mean, it's a perilous game, man, and people are not going to survive it.
Well,
remember that scene from The Godfather where the guy wakes up in the hotel room with the dead hooker? Hey, Mike, you might want to rewatch that a few dozen times.
The game's not played that crudely anymore, Eugene.
Oh, isn't it? Let's talk to Mr. Anthony Weiner.
He's sorry. He's busy tweeting on his phone right now.
Maybe Elliot Spitzer. We could get him in there.
He's got an appointment with the young lady in about an hour.
Yeah, okay.
Well, thanks for joining us. Follow us on Twitter at Eugene S. Robinson, at Kid Nate, at Alexi Old. Please give us a thumbs up, Eugene. There we go.
There you go. And then also, look what I got. Sponsor.
Fighter's DNA.
Fighter's DNA, man.
Love them, love them. Great apparel. Great apparel.
These are the only guys. These guys are not helping me. They're helping the guys I train with.
I see. It's
man,
I now have a rash guard that doesn't smell like cat ass.
You need to preserve that endorsement and just put it on YouTube. Loop it. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube and MMA Nation iTunes. Visit Bloody Elbow. Read Eugene at Ozzy.com. Be sure to check out all three of us at Amazon.com. We'll be back next week with another edition of If I Did It, and we don't know what we're going to be discussing yet because the PR for kerfuffles have yet to be made.